Karen screamed at my pregnant sister for parking. I'm the governor's bodyguard. It was the kind of scream that forces birds out of trees. I just shut the gate behind the black SUV when I heard it shrill, slicing through the summer stillness like a siren from a broken soul. I was 3 houses down and still. That voice hit me like a warning shot. At first, I thought someone was being attacked. Technically, they were. My sister, Camila, 8 months pregnant and glowing like a sunbeam, stood pinned against her car by a woman in tennis whites who looked like she'd stepped out of a 1980s HOA handbook and swallowed a megaphone. You think that little baby belly makes you special? She screeched. This is my street. You don't park here unless you ask me. I didn't walk, I ran. Camilla was frozen, a single hand resting on the swell of her belly, like she was guarding more than just her child, like she was trying to keep her dignity from crumbling. Her eyes met mine for a half-second, and I saw at the start of panic. I scanned the area. Her SUV had a fresh, glistening scratch down the driver's side door, likely from the tip of a key, the side mirror hanging by a wire. And Karen, oh, she wore that expression, the Karen expression, that twisted, smug confidence built from years of getting her way through volume, manipulation, and fear. Back, away, from my sister. I said in a voice low enough to make concrete flinch. She turned, mid-rant, hands still raised like talons. And who the hell do you think I opened my jacket? Her eyes met my badge. Everything changed. But that was just the beginning. We'd moved to the cul-de-sac in Ridgewater a week earlier. Camilla had left the city after her husband deployed for the second time. Being a military wife and now a soon-to-be mom, she needed support, and I could provide that. As the governor's personal protection officer, I wasn't exactly the white picket fence type, but Ridgewater had seemed quiet, safe. It only took one Karen to ruin the illusion. Neighbors had warned me about Jeanette. Apparently, she wasn't technically part of any real HOA, but she ran the Ridgewater Beautification and Orderly Conduct Committee. Fake documents, fake fines, real power, at least over the fearful. She had a Facebook group, a homemade clipboard, and an army of laminated signs. But today, she crossed a line she couldn't unscratch. Camilla was still shaking when I brought her inside. She keyed the car. She whispered, voice trembling. When I told her I had permission from the leasing office to park there, she said she was the leasing office. She what? And then she said if I was too pregnant to move fast, I shouldn't come outside. I swallowed the fire burning in my throat. I dealt with cartels, rogue agents, even assassination attempts. But this hit different. We filed a police report that afternoon. Camilla had video. But what made it explosive wasn't just what Karen did. It was what she said after I don't care who you people are. Go back to whatever ghetto you crawled out of. My sister's tears turned to fury. So did mine. But fury alone wasn't enough. This was deeper. This was war. The morning after the incident, I wasn't woken up by my alarm. I was woken up by printer paper, dozens of them, stuck to my windshield, my porch, even my damn mailbox like some deranged HOA confetti. Each sheet bore the same 3 words in thick, permanent marker. Illegal parking warning. No logo, no letterhead, just a signature scribbled at the bottom in red ink. Chairwoman Jeanette D., Voss, Ridgewater Committee of Order. A fake title, a fake fine, a real mistake. Camilla stood beside me in her robe, cradling her bump and blinking hard, trying not to let it trigger her. I bent down, peeled one of the notices from the door handle, and stared. It reeked of toner, ink, and delusion. She's escalating, I muttered. She's terrifying, Camilla whispered back. And the neighbors, Elijah, none of them are saying anything. They all saw what she did yesterday. They just looked away. That part stung the most. I'd seen this pattern before, abuse hidden under the veil of neighborhood order. It's what happens when a loud tyrant corners a group of polite people too scared to speak. But I'm not polite. I'm trained. I made some calls, First to Ridgewater's property management company, who told me in a very careful voice that Jeanette wasn't an official representative of any HOA or the company. They even admitted they'd had complaints, but no one ever followed through formally. Translation. She was a fake authority with a god complex and no leash. I asked for her file. They didn't have one. So I made my next call to Lily Cartwright, a retired legal investigator and friend from my private security days. She answered on the first ring. "Tell me you're not dealing with another Karen again." She sighed. "Worse. This one's got a clipboard and a fan base." Lily laughed. "That's not a Karen. That's a cult leader with HOA cosplay." Within the hour, Lily sent me screenshots from neighborhood groups and nextdoor posts. Jeanette was all over them, posting photos of people's yards with the caption, "Violation of Ridgewater standards." Sad she'd even publicly shamed a veteran last year for putting up a 4th of July banner a day early. My blood simmered, but it boiled over when Lily sent the last screenshot. It was a video clearly recorded by Jeanette herself, now deleted, but archived by a savvy neighbor. In it, she proudly described how she had removed an offensive sticker from a resident's car. You could see her scraping a military family decal off a minivan. The caption, "No Army nonsense in Ridgewater." This isn't a barracks. I went for a walk that afternoon. Camilla stayed home. She needed rest. I needed intel. As I strolled the block, I noticed little things I'd missed before. Cameras, 3 of them, perched on Jeanette's porch, all pointed outward. Her front yard had signs like landmines, "No trespassing," "Private committee zone," and even "No unauthorized vehicles beyond this point." She'd drawn fake boundary lines on public sidewalks with chalk. But that wasn't the worst part. It was the knock on my shoulder. "Hey, you're the guy who moved in with the pregnant girl, right?" A man in his 60s. Cautious eyes. Lawnmower gloves still on. "Yes," I said. He glanced around, then leaned in. "I saw what happened. With Jeanette, I didn't say anything yesterday and I'm sorry. I should have. Why didn't you?" He looked at his porch, at the window blinds barely moving. "She made my wife cry once, because of our dog's barking. I tried to report her, but she sent out fake violation letters, harassed us on Facebook. We just learned to stay quiet." I shook his hand. "You don't have to anymore." I went straight to the sheriff's department. The deputy recognized me. Turns out, I'd escorted his cousin during a gubernatorial rally last fall. He listened carefully. I gave him the file. Photos of the vandalized car, a printed copy of the deleted Facebook video, screenshots of Jeanette's violations, statements from 2 neighbors, both anonymized at their request. He nodded. "She's not with any legitimate HOA," he confirmed, "and she's got no authority to fine or intimidate anyone. But people let her act like she does. Until now." I said. He promised to forward the report to the DA's office. Vandalism, harassment, potential impersonation of a civil role. But as I left the office, I knew something else. This wouldn't be solved in court alone. Jeanette didn't thrive in legal spaces. She thrived in silence, in fear, in manipulation. If she had power, it wasn't because of law. It was because of people. And that's where I'd start. I returned to Ridgewater with a plan. That evening, I invited Camilla's neighbors to our backyard. I kept it informal: lemonade, chairs, soft jazz from my speaker. At first, no one came, but one by one, they drifted in. The man with the dog, a couple from across the street, even a teenage girl who said Jeanette had told her crop tops were not Ridgewater appropriate. I told them what I knew. I showed them the fake notices, the deleted videos. I read excerpts from the management company's email confirming Jeanette had no legal power. "I'm not asking you to fight her," I said. "I'm asking you to stop fearing her." That's when the veteran stood up. Gray crew cut, worn hands. "She took my flag down," he said. 2 years ago. Said it was visual pollution. I didn't speak up then, but I will now." One by one, they followed. A mother who'd been fined $50 for letting her toddler's trike sit on the porch. A young man who said Jeanette asked if he was even a citizen. A widow who cried when she remembered being told her husband's memorial statue was too tacky for Ridgewater aesthetics. It wasn't a support group. It was a reckoning. By the time the streetlights flickered on, we had a coalition, not just of victims but of witnesses, of people willing to go on record. We called ourselves the actual Ridgewater Committee. Jeanette wouldn't see it coming. When you work in executive protection, you learn to read people the way others read newspapers. Their eyes, their hands, their tempo. Jeanette walked like a queen holding invisible scepters in both hands, one a clipboard, the other a leash of fear. But queens fall, and I had just built the gallows. The morning after our backyard gathering, I submitted a formal complaint not to the police, but to Ridgewater's regional management firm. It included neighbor statements, timestamps, photo evidence, and video. It also included a 3-page cover letter, signed by me with my full title and position, Elijah Torres, Executive Security Officer, Office of the Governor. In short, this wasn't just a petty neighborhood scuffle anymore. A woman who had no legal power had damaged government property, vandalized a protected witness's vehicle, and was impersonating legal authority in a high-profile district. The moment my file hit their desk, I got a call. From the governor's legal aide. "Is your sister okay?" she asked first. Voice urgent. "She's safe now," I replied, but shaken and angry. We've had whispers of things like this happening. HOA impersonators, but none with documented bias in this level of harassment. If you give us clearance, we can escalate it. I paused. This wasn't just about Jeanette anymore. It was about what she represented. "Do it," I said. Within 48 hours, the file was forwarded to the State Attorney General's office under an internal review for unauthorized impersonation of civil enforcement and vandalism of a protected citizen's property. The first domino fell, back in Ridgewater. We were preparing for the next move. Our growing alliance had turned active. We called ourselves the True Ridgewater Committee, and we weren't playing pretend. We printed real flyers. "You are not alone. You have rights. Jeanette has no authority." We distributed legal resources, sample letters to property management, templates for cease and desist filings, contact info for community lawyers who'd agreed to assist pro bono. Most important of all, we walked, door to door, together. Camilla even joined, her belly now more pronounced, but her voice stronger than I'd ever heard. She called me a parasite. She told one neighbor, "Because I parked in front of my own house. Don't let her do it to your daughter next." We weren't loud. We were consistent, and Ridgewater quietly, steadily shifted. Jeanette struck back on a Thursday. She always struck back on Thursdays. It was trash day, when most residents were out and about. Perfect for spectacle. I heard the screaming before I saw her. Camilla had just returned from her prenatal appointment when Jeanette stormed across the street with her phone camera recording. She was shrieking about violators and foreign freeloaders and abusers of American soil. But this time, Camilla didn't flinch. She held up her own phone. Smile. "Jeanette. The internet's watching now." Jeanette slapped the phone away. It bounced on the sidewalk. Cracked. Camilla staggered back, and that's when Jeanette shoved her. Hard. And I saw it. The single most dangerous thing a woman like Jeanette could ever show. No. Remorse. I moved fast. Faster than I'd moved since the incident outside the Capitol in 22. I caught Camilla before she fell, and Jeanette, she stood frozen because she realized too late that I had been filming her. My hidden lapel cam was already running. Full audio. Full high-definition footage of a woman shoving a pregnant immigrant on camera. And behind her, 3 other neighbors were filming too. I posted it that night on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Reddit, everywhere. This is Jeanette D., Voss of Ridgewater, harassing and assaulting a pregnant woman she doesn't recognize. She claims to run a neighborhood HOA. She doesn't. What she does run is a campaign of intimidation. Let's end it. The footage went viral in hours. Within the first day, 75,000 shares. Within the second, 400,000 views. By day 3, every major outlet in state had picked it up. But it was the comments that showed me change was coming. This happened to my mom in Arizona, same fake HOA abuse. She pushed a pregnant woman, lock her up. Why are these fake Karens allowed to weaponize neighborhoods? I live in Ridgewater. She fined my kid $25 for sidewalk chalk. She was no longer feared, she was exposed, and nothing fuels justice like public outrage. On the fifth day, the governor called me personally. Is your sister all right? He asked. She's tough, I said, but tired. He didn't mince words. We're introducing new legislation, fast-tracked. Fake HOA enforcement is about to become a Class A misdemeanor in this state, and your footage, it's Exhibit A. I closed my eyes and let the weight of it sink in. We'd started a wildfire. Jeanette wouldn't just be disgraced, she'd become a cautionary tale. By the time the sheriff's deputies knocked on Jeanette's door, the neighborhood was silent but awake. Curtains peeled back, phones recorded. Even the kids on bikes stopped and watched. She answered in a robe, face red, clipboard in hand. When they read the charges: assault, vandalism, harassment, and impersonation of civil authority, she sputtered about lies and libel and outsiders poisoning Ridgewater. But no one believed her anymore. Not even her neighbors, especially not them. Later that night, Camilla and I sat on the porch together. She rested her head on my shoulder. Her belly moved gently beneath her hands. They keep saying I'm strong, she whispered, but I was so scared. I nodded. Being strong doesn't mean never being scared. It means standing anyway. The porch light flickered on. Across the street, 3 families gathered outside, chatting, laughing. Ridgewater was waking up, and Jeanette. She was gone. But the war wasn't over yet. The system that allowed people like her to thrive needed fixing, nationally. And I had one last play to make. The same cul-de-sac that once rang with Jeanette's voice now echoed with something entirely new: silence. The kind of silence that follows collapse. The kind that tastes like fresh air after the storm rips the shutters off. The kind that tells you it's over but not done. Jeanette was gone, removed by court order. Her bail was denied due to history of escalating behavior, community intimidation, and risk of retaliation. The sheriff's department posted an official update: Jeanette D. Voss is no longer permitted on the premises of Ridgewater or any related property. That line, I read it 5 times. But justice isn't just about removing the villain. It's about restoring what was broken and making sure it stays whole. 3 days after her arrest, I stood on the steps of the state capitol, this time, not in my usual position behind the governor, but next to him. He'd asked me to speak during the press briefing on the new Neighborhood Integrity and Transparency Act. It was a law designed to criminalize false impersonation of HOA or civic authority. It created a public database of verified HOAs, enforced financial transparency, and gave residents clearer channels to report harassment, extortion, and vandalism from non-legitimate sources. The governor took the podium first. This case is not isolated. He said, Elijah's family represents countless others across the country targeted by self-declared vigilantes who exploit silence. That ends now. Then it was my turn. As I stepped up to the mic, my palms tingled, not from nerves those burned off in Baghdad years ago. No, this was adrenaline born of purpose. I protect the governor of this state. I began. I've faced armed threats, coordinated plots, riots. But the person who did the most damage to my family this year wasn't any of those. It was a woman with a clipboard who believed her cruelty was a right. The reporters were stone silent. Jeanette didn't just harass my pregnant sister. She humiliated veterans. She vandalized homes. She erased dignity, one printed warning at a time. Not because she was powerful, but because no one stood up to her. I paused, and now we are. That footage, it aired on 5 national networks that night. We weren't Ridgewater anymore. We were America. But justice has layers. Removing Jeanette was step 1. Step 2, repairing the damage she left behind. Camilla's SUV had been fully detailed and repaired courtesy of a private donation from a local veterans nonprofit who saw the story online. But the emotional wounds, those needed community. So we built one. We launched a nonprofit Ridgewatch mission to educate residents nationwide on recognizing fake HOAs, legal protections, and how to stand up without becoming a target. Within 2 weeks, we had a team of 7 volunteer lawyers, partnerships with 3 neighborhood watch groups, a hotline for reporting impersonators and intimidation tactics, a database of known fake HOAs and self-appointed enforcers. Camilla ran the communication side. Lily, my old investigator friend, led the research team, and me, I ran point on coordination, legal briefings, and public training events. The irony wasn't lost on me. The Bodyguard had become a builder. Jeanette's trial was set for the following month, but the internet didn't wait. A new wave of stories emerged from across the country. A disabled veteran in Texas who was fined $200 for flying a service flag by a woman pretending to be part of an HOA that never existed. A black single mother in Illinois whose Christmas decorations were removed for aesthetic violation. A blind man in North Carolina whose seeing-eye dog was labeled a trip hazard. We compiled the stories. We published them. And then, something unexpected happened. Jeanette responded. From jail, a handwritten letter arrived at the sheriff's office. The press got a hold of it, of course. She claimed to be the victim of a national smear campaign, insisted her neighborhood purity goals were misunderstood, and ended with a threat, "You can't erase order. Ridgewater will always need someone in charge." She still didn't get it. She thought she was necessary, but Ridgewater, without her, was thriving. 1 week before her trial, we held a community meeting in the neighborhood park. Real banners this time, real people, real voices. Camilla gave a speech while holding our mother's hand. She thanked everyone, neighbors, activists, even former silent bystanders who had come forward after the story went viral. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I used to believe quiet was the same as peace, but now I know quiet without justice is just fear in disguise. We deserve more than quiet. We deserve each other." The crowd rose in applause. Even the teens with earbuds clapped. I left the park that night with a strange feeling in my chest, like gratitude. Justice and weariness had all mixed into something heavy and warm. I'd guarded politicians for a decade. Now, for the first time, I was guarding something even more sacred, a neighborhood's right to breathe. But I still had one final mission, and I wasn't leaving it unfinished. Jeanette's sentencing would only matter if it rippled beyond our street. I had a plan for that. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not from air conditioning, though it blasted like a meat locker, but from the stares, whispers behind manicured hands, curious glances at me, at Camilla, at the people sitting beside us, as if trying to guess which ones are Jeanette's victims. Answer all of us. The state of California, our Jeanette D. Voss was not just a trial, it was an autopsy. Of every weaponized whisper, every fake fine, every chalk line drawn in hate. The courtroom walls bore witness as months of abuse, concealed beneath the illusion of neighborhood pride, were dragged into light. Jeanette sat at the defense table in a pressed blazer and pearl earrings, as if trying to cosplay dignity. Her hair was tightly pinned, her hands clutched a manila folder that probably held nothing, but her eyes still glinted with the hollow confidence of someone who truly believed, that the world had wronged her. The prosecution began with Camilla, 8 months pregnant at the time of the attack. Calm on the stand now, with our newborn daughter Luciana resting in her arms as she spoke. "I was just trying to park and rest," she told the court, "but Jeanette said I didn't belong, that my kind didn't belong." The courtroom murmured. The judge banged the gavel. She keyed my car, shouted in my face, called me names I won't repeat here. Then she shoved me. I could have fallen on the concrete and lost my daughter. She didn't cry, but someone in the gallery did. Next came the evidence. My footage, 3 neighbor videos, dozens of digital screenshots from Jeanette's own social media pages, each one a monument to arrogance. The committee of order signs, the messages, the fines. The prosecutor held up laminated violation notices Jeanette had printed and distributed, each bearing forged HOA logos and invented municipal codes. This isn't just harassment, the prosecutor said. This is impersonation, fraud, physical assault, and systematic abuse of power because the defendant thought no one would dare stop her. Then the surprise witness took the stand. It was Ted Hanlon, the veteran, whose flag Jeanette removed 2 years ago. He hadn't spoken in public since his wife passed. But now, he leaned forward, gripping the wooden railing like it held him upright. She tore down the only thing I had left of my unit, he said. Said it was too patriotic, too aggressive. I was in my house for 3 weeks after that. Couldn't even sit on my porch. He looked at Jeanette. She made Ridgewater feel like an enemy country, not a home. Even the defense attorney didn't object. Jeanette took the stand on day 3 and self-destructed. She called the accusations overblown, denied shoving Camilla, despite the video, claimed the warnings she issued were suggestions and not enforcements, and then she said the words that sealed her fate. If people had just listened to me, none of this would have happened. The courtroom gasped. Even the judge blinked hard. The prosecutor waited 5 beats before responding. Ms. Voss, are you saying your victims are to blame for your behavior silence? She said nothing, but the answer was already written in the footage. The photos, the fear, and in the judge's eyes, as he recessed for sentencing. 2 weeks later, we received the verdict guilty on all counts. Impersonation of civic authority, 2 years, suspended after 9 months served. Harassment and community intimidation, $50,000 in community damages. Assault on a protected person, pregnant individual, 18 months prison, no parole. Vandalism of property tied to a government employee, 1 year concurrent. Total 27 months served, plus 5 years probation, mandatory community service, and ironically, she was barred from ever participating in any HOA or residential committee for life. But her biggest punishment wasn't the time, it was the record. Jeanette Voss, the woman who tried to fake her way into authority, would forever carry a real criminal title. The aftermath brought more than relief. It brought change. The Neighborhood Integrity and Transparency Act passed unanimously across 3 state legislatures within 6 months. Other states followed. Ridgewatch expanded nationally, opening hubs in 7 cities. Camilla became its director of outreach. Lily became head of investigations. And me, I stayed in security. But now, I use my weekends for something different. Workshops, training neighbors how to identify fake HOA abuse, how to document, how to escalate, how to stand together when silence is the most dangerous option. Months later, at our first Ridgewatch Summit, I stood on stage with Luciana in my arms. She squirmed, grabbed my collar. She has her mother's fire, I said, smiling down at her. And I hope she never needs to know what it feels like to be told she doesn't belong in her own neighborhood. I looked out at the crowd. Veterans, nurses, teachers, teens, immigrants, elders. One community, one voice. No one, no clipboard warrior, no fake badge, no screaming tyrant gets to decide who belongs. We do, together. Have you ever faced a Jeanette? Someone who used fake rules or self-given authority to humiliate, control, or threaten others? It's time we shine a light on these shadows. Share your story. Speak up. Because when real communities unite, no fake power stands a chance.